I wanted to continue on in the spirit of the last video and showcase some of my tech infrastructure. In this case, I'm going to go through how I solved a real-world problem using my personal tech infrastructure, and it might not be the best way to solve the problem, but it seems to have gotten the job done. The footage in the background is basically me struggling to set up the whole solution, and I don't plan to go over every little detail in this video. It's not really a how-to, but if anyone watches this and wants a detailed how-to, that can be made. Anyway, with that out of the way, what was the problem? Well, not too long ago, I got a chest freezer to put in my garage. The point of that was to be able to buy loads of meat at Costco and freeze it and be able to take advantage of bulk buying like that. So we did that, and that's great. And, that sounds like a solution to a problem. But the problem came when we discovered that the power outlet that the freezer was on, this GCIF trigger safety switch thing had flipped, and we didn't realize it, and we lost all our food. It all spoiled before we noticed, and we thought, oh well, it must have been that power outage. We should just be more careful. If there's a power outage, we have to check it. But the thing is, it wasn't that much longer, and I came across the freezer without power, and this time I caught it in time. No food spoiled, but I was like, this is time to actually solve this problem. So immediately my mind went to having like some sort of network device on the same power strip as the freezer, and then creating some sort of notification system. And that's basically what I did. That's what this story is about. The first part that I'm here struggling to get working is setting up what's called a NTFY server. NTFY is like a service that allows you to generate notifications that you can then push to your phone as push notifications. But it's open source. You can host your own server. So that's what I decided to do. Ultimate goal was for me to be able to get an alert on my phone if the freezer in the garage loses power. But I didn't want to use any like smart tech. I wanted it to all be self-hosted on my kind of like home lab setup. Anyway, this involves a few things that I already have. So I have a Proxmox server, which is like an open source version of VMware ESXi. I guess if you're not as deep into tech as me, that might seem weird. It's basically a server that other virtual machines can run off of. So on this Proxmox server, I just created a new virtual machine to be a simple, bare bones Debian server, and that was where this whole NTFY application was going to live. So I didn't really understand how all it worked until pretty much the end of this whole process. But the long and the short of it is that this application runs a web server, and then clients, either from a browser or from an app on their phone, can subscribe to various topics for that server. So there's a couple problems with this, and one of them is that to get the mobile app to work, you need to use SSL. You can't use HTTP. It has to be HTTPS. And the second problem is, in the default state of this, it's sitting on the internet, open for anyone to connect to, send notifications, listen to notifications, etc. So it needs some sort of access control. The SSL piece was a little bit tough. I tried to use a self-signed cert, but the problem was my phone didn't trust the self-signed cert. So ultimately, I would end up using a proxy server I also already had to handle the SSL. And I'd use Let's Encrypt and CertBot so that that's kind of set up automatically for me. But with that out of the way, there were also just some different configurations that would need to be added to like the server config and to the Nginx config on the proxy server. So I fiddled and fumbled for quite a while, and eventually I kind of found the right settings online with trial and error. So eventually I got that working. The main thing that I wanted, though, was that I wanted this to be a low power device, because if it uses a ton of power, then it's just wasting money, and I wanted it to be simple and cheap. So I went with a Raspberry Pi Zero, a version that had a built-in Wi-Fi module, and I'm lazy, so I bought a preloaded Raspbian SD card to put on it. The problem is I just bought the wrong thing every step of the way. I bought the wrong adapter to connect it to a monitor. None of my keyboards worked with it, even with the adapter I bought. I bought a hub that had USB ports and an Ethernet port, and I ended up having to buy a separate keyboard and a separate mouse, and I was just struggling and fiddling with it for a long time for no good reason. But eventually I got it up and running. I got it hooked up to my Wi-Fi network. I got it at a DHCP reservation. It's got a DNS record. It's ready to go. All it has to do is just sit in the garage and be powered on and connected to the internet, and its job is done. The final piece of the equation beyond that is to just have a script running that will then send notifications when things aren't looking right. So after having fiddled around and getting some access control set up so that anonymous users are read-only, and then my admin user that I use in the script can write to notifications, I set to using ChatGPT to help me create a simple bash script that just basically sent a notification when this device wasn't online, is the long and the short of it. ChatGPT needed a little bit of troubleshooting here and there. It's not that great, but it is a fun way to get the job done, and it made me not have to think quite as hard about the whole task. So, I mean, with that said, I got that script set up, and then I set it up as a service on the notification server. And I mean, we've only been testing it for a couple days now, but it seems to work. I mean, it's pretty functional. So, is this a totally over-engineered solution to the problem? Perhaps. But it was a fun project, and now I have a notification server, and I can generate push notifications for anything I want. Anyway, if you do watch this and you want to see more or would like to see a tutorial about this or any other project that I do, just let me know in the comments and I'll try and make it happen. Until next time, bye.